Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. We're excited that you're here. This is our February webinar, and in this webinar, like we promised, it is a masterclass. I'm excited about it, and I hope you're as excited as I am. I've got a sneak peek into what is coming for all of us. I cannot wait, and I cannot wait to hear your feedback on today's masterclass. We want to apologize for the mix up in time, but we're excited that you all made it here. It's exciting to see where you all are joining in from. So please put in the chat where you're joining in from. If you're open to connecting, put in your LinkedIn URL. Again, my name is 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝗶𝘃. I am the founder of the DPO Africa Network, and I am excited about the support and all that you do within the network. At this point, I will hand it over to Chinomso, who will brilliantly moderate today's session. And before I leave the stage, I want to say thank you to Tolulope for gracing our invite and just looking forward to the insights that she will share. At this point, take it away, Chinomso.
Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on your time zone. Good morning. Like Amaka said, we're excited to have everybody here, and welcome to our February edition of Data Protection in Practice. Like she mentioned, today's session is a masterclass, one that I'm very excited to, just sit and listen. It's on privacy by design. I'm not just talking about it as a concept or as a regulatory slogan, but something that you can measure, something that you can make operational and embed into real systems. And everybody keeps talking about it, but not many people know how to do it or what to do or even how to go about it. So today's session will be closing that gap. But before we get into it, just a bit of like housekeeping. I just felt I should let you all know that this session is being recorded, and a replay will be shared to the registered participants and will also be on our YouTube channels. If you have any questions, because we'll be taking questions after the session, you can leave your questions in the chat box, and we will take that during our Q&A segment. Also, if you'd like to connect with other people here on this webinar, you can also leave your LinkedIn, the link to your LinkedIn account or your LinkedIn details here, and we'll follow you. All right, back to it. To take us on this very practical masterclass, we have the very great pleasure of having Tolulope Ogundele here with us. She is a privacy professional with vast experience leading privacy programs across the EU, the UK, North America, Latin America, and Africa, like the whole world, literally. And she's particularly, works with highly regulated sectors such as like fintech, online gaming, and technology industries. Her work focuses on translating complex frameworks like the GDPR and the NDPA, not just into words and all, but into practical, scalable controls embedded directly into products and operations. So you see, the person here has proper hands-on experience. She also co-founded the Privacy Guide Africa, advancing accessible and actionable data protection across the continent. So, Lilope, we are so happy to have you, and welcome to DPO Africa. Please take the stage.
Yes, hi again, Chinam. So thank you so much for inviting me to today's webinar. I'm very excited to speak about privacy by design because this is one of the topics that I'm actually very, very passionate about when it comes to privacy and data protection in general. And I hope that everybody can gain at least something new today. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and then we will jump right into it. Could you please confirm that you can see my screen? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So, privacy by design. Like I said, today we are going to be talking about privacy by design as a principle in isolation. And I will start by telling you what we are not going to discuss. We are not going to talk about regulatory definitions. We are not going to discuss privacy as a policy document in our shared drive. We are all experts. First to be here, we are all experts in privacy. So I'm not going to be doing a deep dive into the regulatory and the theoretical aspect of privacy by design. Rather, we are going to be looking at it from more of an operational perspective. We are going to talk about how privacy by design actually works within a product team. I feel most organizations understand that privacy by design is required, and then they reference it in the policies and the data protection policy. We are like, yes, we are going to implement privacy by design into all of the design and the architecture and the life cycle. But how do we do this? How can we prove that we've done this? This is something that a lot of organizations might be struggling with. So today, we are going to be discussing that. And the way, as far as what the general consensus about how privacy usually gets brought into conversations is that usually a product is about to launch tomorrow or next week, and then someone remembers, there is a privacy team, or we need a privacy notice, we need a cookie notice, let the privacy team draft this for us. And then they're like, hey, could you please send us a privacy notice for our new feature, for our new website by tomorrow? We need to launch it ASAP. We are going to get 500 million immediately we launch this new feature. And the DPO is like, well, this feature uses AI to determine who you're going to give a loan to based on their facial expressions. That's a lot. We need to conduct risk assessment. We need to check who has access to the data. And eventually, privacy is involved too late. So what this is it's not privacy by design. At the best, I would say it's like privacy at the edge. So today we are going to walk through what a fully operationalized privacy by design model looks like, and we are going to be using a fictional fintech called SmartSpend, and we are going to follow how SmartSpend operationalizes privacy by design into their entire product and process lifecycle, from ideation to risk assessment to embedding privacy in workflows to governance, and also to getting metrics, monitoring, post-launch monitoring, and all of that. We are going to be looking into this. And our goal is simple. We have a very simple goal. We want to move from the theoretical understanding of privacy by design to operational discipline. And at the end of this session, I want you to be able to visualize how privacy is triggered automatically, how risk is assessed, how the architecture for a privacy by design model looks like, how obligations are embedded or translated into engineering requirements. These are some of the things that I would like you to be able to take home after today's masterclass. So let's get right into it. First, I would like to introduce our company that we are going to be working on together today to implement a privacy by design model for a new feature that they are working on. So Smart Spend is an AI powered feature of a fintech mobile wallet, and the purpose of Smart Spend is to analyze the customer's transaction histories, and once it does it, it's going to categorize it and then start giving them like advice on, oh, you're spending too much. We think you need to save better, or you are spending too little, or I think you need a shoe this month. You've not really bought a shoe in a very long time. It gives such types of nudges to the customers, and in order for it to be able to properly analyze what the customer, what the user is actually buying or spending on, they need to send the data to a third party that provides them with more information about the merchant. So our goal with SmartSpend is that we will look at how the privacy by design model starts, how we are going to communicate with the product team about this new AI powered feature, how we are going to do the risk assessment, how we are going to make sure that we can have repeatable, optimized processes throughout the entire life cycle of the product, from the idea that we've received to launch and even post launch as well. But first, I know I said we are not going to go into regulatory details, but let's just have a very quick overview of what privacy by design is for those who might be new to the topic totally. And then after this, we will just briefly talk about the difference between privacy by design and privacy by default. Then we are actually going to start. So, privacy by design is a framework where data protection is integrated into the entire life cycle of a product or process. Note, it's not only a product, it could also be a process. And successfully operationalizing privacy by design requires executive support. And it also requires a cultural shift from considering privacy as a compliance requirement to a shared responsibility across all relevant stakeholders to a workflow. So we are talking about engineering, product, legal, security, business, finance. We make the plan is to make privacy a shared responsibility and not say that, oh, privacy owns privacy. We don't care about whatever else it is that they want to do. So for privacy by design, I also recommend that you read the principles by Dr. Anne Kavokian. This is going to give you more insights into the definition of privacy by design and the more like the theoretical part. But in sum, privacy by design, privacy should be proactive, it should not be reactive. It means that you should, when you are implementing privacy by design, you should be able to anticipate risk and already put privacy into the systems from the beginning, not reacting into the issues after they've already happened. So this is your foundational element. And how is privacy by design different from privacy by default? So, like I said, privacy by design is very, very proactive. You've already thought about it from the beginning. You've identified all of the risk. You've identified all of the legal requirements. You've already embedded this into the entire like development life cycle. So we have this idea. What regulations do we need to comply with? What do these regulations say? How do we comply with them? How do we put it in our systems? And at this point, you're also asking yourself, okay, so how do I comply? The NDPA says that we should make sure that we collect minimal data. How do we make sure that only the minimal data is collected? How do we review that we are actually collecting not too much data? We are keeping them for only as long as they are needed. Those are the issues that you look at when you're talking about privacy by design. Then when we look at privacy by default, on the other hand, it ensures that the strictest privacy requirements are automatically applied without requiring any action from the user. So it's about making privacy the standard. That okay, so even without the user doing anything, without the user taking any actions, their privacy is already respected. So take for example, let's say we have a social media application that only collects the necessary data that it needs in order to ensure end-to-end encryption, or to ensure that in text messaging, or ensures that it does not collect maybe your location or your let's say make behavioral insights from what you are putting on the social media platform, or unless you explicitly go and say, you know what, I want you to take my location data so that you can provide me with more content relevant to my location, then it's fine. But the default would be that okay, it does not collect any location data, it does not make any reference inferences on your behaviors to determine maybe, for example, what political party you would want to vote for. It won't do that, except you say, oh, I really, really do want you to do this. So now we understand the difference between privacy by design and privacy by default. Uh, Now that we know this difference, what next? What exactly do we do? How do we actually now operationalize privacy by design? How do we move from the principles that we are already aware of to the process? Because privacy by design does not activate itself. It does not magically appear when a new feature is created. It must be triggered. Something must have triggered the need for privacy to come in. And in most organizations, it could be maybe someone, at least the current procedure could be that, oh, somebody suddenly remembered privacy, or somebody is friends with the DPO and said, let's ask privacy, or they're about to sign a contract with the vendor, with legal, and legal is like, have you done a privacy review? So, if we want privacy to be embedded in our processes and in our product development lifecycle, then we need a structured mechanism that activates privacy review whenever certain conditions are met. And depending on your organization, you might have different triggers. But some common triggers, and especially in the context of smart spend, the fintech that we are examining today, some common triggers could be something like, oh, we are launching a new feature, smart spend. We want to reuse transaction data for behavioral profiling. We want to do some new automated decision score making, or we are collecting new data. We are now trying to predict whether this client is actually rich and whether we can provide a loan to them in another service stream of the company that we're on. So basically, we are doing new things. These are examples of things that could be our triggers. And I want you to take a quick look at this conversation by the Smart Spend product team, and let me know if you can spot any issues here that could potentially be a trigger that would activate a privacy review. You can write in the chat if you can spot anything. For example, they are discussing. Uh, we have new updates on Smart Spend. We are going to be processing the normal transaction history. We are also going to be adding new AI-driven financial tips for nudges and savings reminder. We want to integrate with the new merchants so that they can help us categorize the transactions better, and then we can give our users more detailed insights into what they are spending and how they are spending. And then we are also looking at, we are going to take some insights based on how they behave. Mhm. Yes, Mike's comment. Yes, you are correct. Mike's comment. Yes, they're adding a new AWS cluster. This is a new technological implementation. So definitely this triggers a privacy review. We can also look at David's comments. Actually, they are adding new AI-driven tips. So this is also something that could potentially trigger the need for like privacy to get involved. And they want to get behavioral insights of user activities. So this is also something else. They are also going to be sharing data with a new provider in order to be able to categorize transactions. Then we want to know, okay, so what data exactly are you sharing with this company? Um, are the users aware that we're going to be sharing this data with the companies? So, and then if you also look at Emma's statement, she says, we are getting a new scoring system from transaction data. So these are examples of some, yeah, they also want to store data permanently. Thank you so much, Forma. And yes, integrate API, mentions integration, behavioral insight. Exactly, exactly. You guys are amazing. Yes. So these are some triggers that have already been identified. Now that we've identified the triggers, what are we going to do next? Identifying a trigger is not the end of the process. It is actually the beginning of a discipline analysis. When a trigger actually signals that a proposed feature introduces a material change that requires a structured assessment to be completed before being finalized. So now that we've identified that they want to do all of these things that we've identified, is our next step to translate all of the legal obligations into actionable build requirements? Is this our next step? Tell me yes or no in the chat. What do you think? Yes. What do you think our next step should be? The product team, they're discussing, they're like, okay, these are some of the things that we've identified. It definitely triggers a review. As the privacy team, what is your next step? Is it going to be to translate actionable legal obligations into actionable build requirements, like we all like to say? Well, no. No. Let's take a look again at our smart spend example. So they want to profile transaction, they want to conduct profiling of transaction behavior, they want to share data with a third party enrichment provider, and this clearly constitutes trigger event, right? They increase the scale and the sensitivity of the processing. So let's say before we were just collecting data in order to be able to help the customer identify that this is how much they've spent in a month. Now, we are collecting data in order to be able to get insight on their behavior so that we know that, oh, when it's between the 12th and the 15th of each month, it's very, very likely that this person is probably going to buy a new shoe, or maybe spend more money on eating due to some reasons, or maybe every 4 months they like to splurge. So at this point, we maybe want to start giving them advertisements through which we can maybe get some money through referral or something. So we don't know why they are doing this behavioral, why they are trying to gather the behavioral insights, right? We don't know why, but automatically this already shows that, okay, there is an increase in the scale of the processing, in the sensitivity of the processing. It sort of introduces new risk. And our response should now be not to start drafting. We need to do data minimization, or we need to we need to put in technical measures in place to make sure that data is secure. No, our next step should be to actually now do a sort of risk review. We want to we want to understand better as the privacy team. We want to understand better, what are you trying to achieve with this activity. So we evaluate the overall risk profile, and this is going to include, we want to know the nature of the processing activity. Why are we doing it? What categories of data is involved? Then after we've examined the risk level, we want to know, okay, do we need to do a structured risk assessment? Do we need to do a DPIA? Do we need to do a transfer impact assessment, or an LIA if we are going to be relying on legitimate interest? And then we also now want to know, okay, so we've already conducted our risk reviews, we've done our risk assessment. Under what conditions can the processing go ahead? Can it go ahead smoothly, or do we need to put in some controls in place before the processing can go ahead? For example, some controls can be, we need to ensure that the data subjects' rights are respected. We need to provide an easy way for the data subjects to be able to opt out, for example, or to download their data or something. So we want to determine these are the conditions under which we must fulfill before we can go ahead with this feature. And of course, always documentation. You need to document your decision. So again, for smart spend, let's assume now that our privacy team, we've already done our risk assessment. We've because we received the privacy intake questionnaire, we've done our risk assessment. We've looked into all of the risk involved. We've already identified the controls that we need to put in place. How do we now communicate? We've already identified the risk, right? We've identified our legal obligations. How do we now communicate this with the product team in a way that makes sure that we don't need to hear about new product features or new processing activities or new triggers just by hearsay, maybe by the water cooler in the office, or somebody luckily came to us to speak to us? How do we make sure that we can create a repeatable, governed, optimized process? And this is where designing governance comes in. It means that from the beginning, let's take a step back. We've already we understand what privacy by design is. We understand that in order to start privacy by design, to make it operational, we need to understand what triggers a privacy review. And then we've understood that the next step after a privacy review, after the privacy team has been activated, or a privacy trigger has been activated, is that the privacy team reviews, they conduct risk assessments, they do all of this, they set the conditions for processing. Now, what is our next step? Our next step would be to most likely inform the product development team and make sure that they can implement whatever it is that we've said to them. However, if we keep doing it that, okay, today for this feature, you come to me, I send you an email, I see you in the office in the kitchen, I tell you this is what we need to do, this is what you do it. And then next time we see, maybe we are meeting on the way home at the bus stop, and then I'm telling you, oh no, we can't do it that way. We need to implement storage limitation. We need to do this. We don't have a good process in place. So we need to design governance in order to make sure that our systems are optimized, they're matured, and we can repeat them without like so many like manual relying on so much manual effort. So there are three elements that make up governance, and one is having a clearly defined roles and responsibility, understanding who is responsible for what. The second one is embedding the workflows or within already existing product development processes. And then the third one is actually enforcing them through internal system controls instead of informal communication, instead of typing on Slack, on WhatsApp, anywhere, making sure that we can actually document all of the decision and the way everything has worked. Because again, we need accountability, we need to fulfill our accountability requirements, we need to make our documentations. So in order to make sure that this process is fully operational, fully, we have a very, very good model. These are the three elements that we need to put in place. So we are going to look at these three elements one after the other. I think we are going to give you the slides, so don't try to read. I put a lot of content so that you can read it later. So privacy governance begins with the clarity of ownership. One of the most common misconceptions is that privacy owns privacy, and this is in fact not correct. The business owns the product. Privacy does not own the product. The business owns the product. The privacy function exists to ensure that the risks are identified, they are translated, they are verified, we apply the risk treatments to them. And for example of some roles and responsibilities that you could be looking at, the if you have a business owner, your business owner determines what's the purpose, what's the commercial necessity for this product is. They also accept any risk, they approve the risk tolerance, whatever, anything that is relating to risk, they approve all of that, they sign off on it. The product manager is actually the one that embeds the privacy requirements into, let's say, the workflow, into the backlog. They own, okay, so this is the developer that is going to be doing this. We talk to the developer. And then the engineering manager exists to actually implement whatever requirements that the privacy team has listed. They exist to implement it and turn it into code. Because literally, if engineering, if you say, okay, we need to make sure that data is deleted 30 days after a user closes their account, and then engineering says, no, we're not going to write the code, then we have no means to delete the data. So without engineering, then we basically have no privacy as well. uh so let's look at the second element, embedding privacy by design into the workflows. As you know, in modern product development, we rarely follow the waterfall processes where you build all of the process, all of the tool, and then it goes to all of the privacy, and then it goes through all of the legal, and then it goes through all of the security. Modern product development doesn't really follow that flow anymore. So what we need to do is we need to embed privacy into the agile and or Scrum or whatever model that the organization is using. We need to adapt it into those environments so that they exist within the cycles, within the sprint cycles. And what this could mean is that, okay, let's say this is example of a model. There are different several models that organizations use depending on their needs, but this is an example of what a product development model could look like, or life cycle could look like. So let's say we have the product discovery. During the product discovery, this is where, you remember that privacy trigger that we looked at earlier that were activated. This is where they could be activated. So there, we are already saying, oh yeah, we want to do this new product. Then how? Then we need to do privacy review at this point in order to know what's the requirement, what the business requirement from the privacy team would look like. And then during the backlog grooming, we could now translate the privacy requirements into things like user stories, into tasks, And for example, we can, at this stage, we are saying, oh, as a user, I want my smart spend nudges to be disabled by default so that my spending behavior is not analyzed by choice. This is an example of a user story. And we can do this, we can create all of this in the backlog grooming. And then we can also set the acceptance criteria. We will be looking into details more about this in our coming slides. Then during the sprint planning phase, we can also do privacy verification forms as part of the demonstration. Like when they are like demoing the products, we can do like verify whether the requirements that we ask them to put in place as a privacy team, whether they've been put in place. We can confirm that, let's say, privacy is now by default. We have our retention logic, we have our access controls in place. And then during the release preparation, we can now finally sign off. Privacy can finally sign off and check, okay, yes, users can now exercise their data subject rights. They can download all of their documents, they can request deletion, they can say that they don't want to be subject to behavioral analysis. So in this model, privacy actually becomes a part of your sprint velocity. It is not that product development are doing their own thing and then it comes to privacy at the end of the day. No, privacy actually becomes a part of the entire process, of the entire life cycle. And so I mentioned earlier putting privacy in the workflow. What could this look like? This could So privacy governance can only become effective when you've enforced it structurally. And you cannot enforce privacy structurally by sending informal emails, Slack reminders. You need to have a process in place. So this is what I tried to exemplify with this picture, where we have created a privacy intake issue. And this privacy intake issue is triggered by the profiling activities that we mentioned earlier when we were looking at the triggers and the third party enrichment. So our privacy team has identified all of the privacy requirements. Some of them is for the team and the vendors and all of that. We've identified all of that. So this is once this is done, this is already like within all of the entire, for example, the entire product development tool that is used by the organization. Some organizations use Jira, some use ClickUp, some use Monday.com, whatever it is that organizations use. These processes can already be included in them. And then once all of the requirements from the privacy intake has been fulfilled, then we go to, okay, we can now release the product. We've already fulfilled all of the requirements. We can now release, we've completed it, we have evidence. We can now close this issue and yeah, we have a new feature. So just to wrap up the governance part, what does good governance look like? Good governance looks like it is very predictable. You know that once you are already once you are creating a new feature and you select that personal data will be used in order to create this feature, and then you select that maybe there will be behavioral profiling, then it immediately triggers a privacy review. Privacy reviews, they conduct their risk assessment and then they communicate this to us in as part of our sprint life cycle. So they come to us during, let's say, our product discovery, and then they tell us these are the requirements, or during our sprint review or whatever, they come to us and then they tell us these are the user stories, these are the things you need to implement. So we already have um our governance model in place. So what have we done so far? We've triggered the privacy review, we've identified risk, we have put in place a governance model, how we are going to be communicating with other teams. We've identified the roles and responsibilities, embedding privacy into the workflow. Now we need to tell the product teams. And usually, it's in my experience, it goes this way. We have identified the risk in the feature you're planning. You need to ensure that data is minimal and adequate and relevant and delete it once the storage period expires. And the product teams are like, what exactly do you want from us? Do you want us to like store it in like forever, or what exactly do you want? So they need you to tell them the requirements in a way that they would understand. And this is what a lot of us do. We say, yes, we translate privacy requirements or legal requirements into product requirements. So let's look at how we can actually translate them. I have five, I have a five stage approach that I use whenever I want to, or that I recommend for translating legal obligations to PRDs, to product requirements. And the first stage is usually to identify the legal obligation. What is the legal requirement? Personal data must be adequate, it must be relevant, it must be limited to what is necessary. Good. What do we want to achieve with this legal obligation? It means that, or what do we need to like implement in order to be able to fulfill this legal obligation? It means that we are going to identify what controls we exactly need to put in place. So in the case of smart spend again, it could be that smart spend must be able to operate without collecting or emitting unnecessary identifiers. That's our control objective. Now we need to convert it into explicit requirement. So it means that we are telling the engineering team that well, telemetry payloads must adhere to an approved schema. Let's say that in English. It literally means that whatever it is that we are doing must be in compliance with the structure that we've put in place. So if we are going to be sending data to the merchants, and we've said we are going to be sending you just the name, I'm sorry, to the third party for interest enrichment, and we said we're going to be sending you just the name of the merchants in order for you to analyze what type of services they provide so that we can know what our clients or what our user has been spending money on. Then we should make sure that we're not sending more than that. And then after you've identified the build requirements, then we want to define the measurable acceptance criteria. So under what situation would we say that this build requirements that we've given to the developers has been fulfilled? And so that is going to be our acceptance criteria. And this could be, okay, we've inspected that the payload samples in the staging, and we've confirmed that the schema restrictions are enforced. That is, we are not sending more than the data that we need to send, or we are not collecting more than the data that we need to collect. And then once we've done that, how do we close up the entire workflow? We make sure that we specify the evidence to be retained, and then we retain this evidence, because that is how you can actually be accountable and provide information on what you've done. And also, that's the only way you can also review when a retrigger happens for that specific activity. So let's try to just put this in a way that is easier to understand. So here we have a ticket again. And in this ticket, we first need to identify the legal obligation. And our legal obligation is that personal data must be relevant, limited, adequate to what is necessary. And then our control objective is that smart spend must operate without collecting or emitting unnecessary identifiers. That is, it must operate without like taking unnecessary data. And then now we have to convert it to build requirements. This is for the developers. It means that we must have an approved event schema, we must have restricted enrichment fields, we must have identifier exclusion rules. These are the things they want to hear. So what is our acceptance criteria? Then those can be inspecting the payload schema in continuous improvement and development, and then verifying test event deletion. So this is an example of what it could look like. And as you can see, we are creating additional tasks for the development teams. So for each thing that they need to implement, we create them task. So once we are done with um once we are done with informing them and translating all of the legal requirements into build requirements for the engineering teams, then we want to now start reviewing, we want to test the controls, we want to make sure that privacy is now the default, and we want to make sure that we have structured sign-offs that they just don't rely on informal approvers. Instead, they should be embedded like in our existing workflows. So we are making sure that okay, our acceptance criteria has been verified. We have the evidence that the acceptance criteria has been verified. Then after that, we can say, okay, privacy can now sign off. We can approve of this feature to go live. Um, Importantly, we must, of course, keep evidence and be accountable because apart from being a legal requirement, privacy by design is incomplete without evidence. So governance determines what must be done, but evidence proves who did it, why was it done, on what basis was it done. So in the smart spend example again, accountability began at the idea stage. The first artifact was not a DPIA. We did not start with a DPIA. It started with a documented purpose and a scope, like the privacy trigger intake document. That was where we started from, and then we went to the risk review. We did everything. So we have all of this information documented. And why again, apart from the legal requirement and it being part of the privacy by design workflow, why again do we need to actually keep evidence, and why do we need to keep proper documentation? It's because of our metrics as well and our continuous improvements, because you cannot treat privacy by design as a one-time implementation exercise. It is not a policy rollout, it is not a tooling configuration, it's not just Jira ticket. No, we must keep reviewing what exactly we are doing. We must know what is working, we must know what is not working. And also, we need to know that the company is going to expand, the features will change, the regulatory requirements will also change. And when all of this happen, we must, for privacy by design to remain credible, it must be monitored, it must be measured, and it must be continuously refined. So how can we do this? I broke this down into four. First, we have our leading indicators, and these indicators, they assess whether privacy is being embedded at the correct stages of the product life cycle. They focus on the behavior and the workflow compliance rather than just the outcomes. Then, one critical measure, for example, can be what is the percentage of privacy intakes that we are getting from the triggers that we've identified? How fast is privacy responding to these intakes and providing feedback to the development teams. So leading indicators are very, very proactive. They help us to identify the structural weaknesses in governance before they start to manifest as regulatory or reputational harms, or we're now saying, oh, we are breaching something. Then we also have the lagging indicators. These lagging indicators are like they help us to assess privacy risk, whether they've also assess whether privacy risk have materialized, whether despite our governance framework, despite all of the measures we've put in place in order to embed privacy by design into our entire life cycle, um, has it happened that we still have incidences? So our lagging indicators help us to identify this. They provide feedback on whether our embedded controls are working, whether they are effective, or whether we need to reassess our metrics. Then we have the feedback loop, and the metrics can only add value if they inform refinement. So if we have metrics and we are not doing anything with the metrics, we're just reading them and we are just happy about them, then they don't really add much value. But if they are informing changes, if they are informing improvements, then they become really, really valuable. And they should operate on a defined cadence. So this means that maybe you want to like do quarterly reviews of your templates, you want to like do maybe yearly reviews of your processes to just know what is working and what is not working. And importantly, metrics should not be used to penalize teams. They should be used to strengthen process design. Then finally, adaptability. We want to make sure that our privacy by design model remains adaptable, because we are going to have, like I said, new technologies. We are going to have new expanded capabilities, especially with the use of AI. So many things are happening every day, and companies, of course, want to like jump on it and get the best value. So we also have changes in business strategies. So it's important for us to keep the metrics so that we can remain adaptable and be able to constantly refine our um, privacy by design model. So quickly, I'm going to just jump into how to shift your mindset from compliance, from privacy as being a compliance or regulatory requirement, into privacy as being a culture. So if privacy only exists in your policy documents, your DPIA template or sign off checklist, then it will always look like something that is external to your product teams or to your business teams. It will just look like privacy, us. Instead, we want to make privacy a part of our product's DNA. And we can do this by repositioning privacy as a design principle, something that shapes the user experience, something that shapes our system architecture, our communication style, our product values. It shifts the mindset from what is the regulator asking from for us to what would a privacy respecting product look like? What would our users expect from us when it comes to respecting their privacy? So we shift it from regulations, from NDPA, from GDPR, from whatever regulations it is that we are using, we shift it to actually being a part of our culture, to more like a business perspective on it, to look at what the users we want. We are not just trying to prevent legal risk, but instead we are developing products that will communicate and empower our users and reflect our own product culture. Then we also okay, I want you to look at, for example, Signal as a social media platform. Signal as a privacy focused user experience. So what that means is that from the beginning, they embed just minimal data collection into the product architecture, and the system is designed in such a way that very little user data exists in a way. So it's not like they're adding privacy on top. Privacy has been there, like it's the foundation. And that's why a lot of people who work in very sensitive department or very sensitive industries prefer to use Signal for informal conversations. So also we want to also design for transparency. We want to make privacy user centric. This means that we want to be transparent in our notices and our communications with the users, so they are adequately informed. We implement things like just in time explanations when nudges are activated. um, we can just basically explain in a very, very easy format what data we are using, for example. And I want to show you. Look at this previous design of the sign up page for Smart Spend. Previously, we had just this: I agreed to receive marketing updates and offers. I consent to my data being used for improving our services, blah, blah, blah. We may collect. But instead, we have a better design that is more attractive, or the second time, that is more attractive to the users that they can easily read. We tell them quickly, this is how we use your data. We will give you personalized insights. Do you want it? You can toggle on, you can toggle off. You have updates and offers and updates. Do you want it? Do you want it not? And it's just a very small change, but it also enhances the user trust in our businesses, in our business. So policies alone don't create culture. We don't create culture by just creating the policies and the procedures and the SOPs and processes and everything and giving it to the um development team. It is also shaped by incentives, leadership signal, and our daily behavior. So this could also include conducting training for your privacy team, and then doing workshops and recognizing and incentivizing privacy. This could also be part of it. So uh, you need to make it a cultural activity and not just a standalone or regulatory activity. That's how you shift the mindset from compliance to culture. So, quickly, I want us to do a full cycle exercise just to, I know we've spoken a lot today and we said a lot. So, I want us to put it together by looking at this exercise. We are going to try to operationalize privacy by design um, by implementing data subject right. So what we want to do is, in order to demonstrate what privacy by design truly looks at like. We are going to consider how data subject rights are embedded in the smart spend feature, from concept to release to monitoring, instead of treating it as a right, as a downstream compliance obligation. Whenever the user sends us an email after reading our privacy notice that, hey, I want you to give me a copy of my data, then we start looking for the data everywhere, and then we're writing to the engineering team, yeah, so give us a copy of all the data you have, and then we write to the finance team, give us a copy of all the data you have, and then we write to the customer team, give us a copy of all the data, and then we'll put it all together, and then we are all stressed. No, instead, we can actually just treat it as a design constraint that shapes the architecture from the beginning. So let's do that together now, before we end this session and we start to ask questions. So, idea. Usually, new features, they usually come from somebody discussing and saying, oh, I have this idea. So now our smart spend team, they've come up with another amazing idea, and they're like, what if we add smart spending insights to our mobile wallet? And Brian is like, oh, like categorizing the transactions, predicting the patterns, blah, blah, blah. And then Jill says, yes, we can also integrate merchant enrichment. So this is their idea stage. This is the discussion within the product team. So what is the next thing they're going to do? They are going to like, yes, let's create a ticket, right? We are going to create a ticket. So this is what their ticket, for example, looks like. And what we've done is that they have now selected, while creating their tickets, they've selected relevant data fields. And the part of the relevant data fields they've selected are transaction history, behavioral analytics, third-party enrichment, personal data. I don't know why that is repeated, but yes. So they've selected all of these data fields. And at the back end, what happens is that once these data fields are selected, the privacy team gets notified that, oh, there is a new feature that demands our attention. Take note that this is the product team's, let's say, Jira ticket. But on their own Jira ticket, we've implemented it such that we now have data fields that, once selected, triggers a notification to the privacy team. So our privacy team has gotten a notification. Let's go to the privacy team. We are currently having a conversation. So Ellen, our privacy specialist, has said, the smart spend 2.0 feature has been triggered for review. Can we access the risk? And then, yes, we are going to assess. Let's look at the data flows. Let's identify the categories. We've understood everything. Then we need to conduct a DPIA. We need to include this and that. We need to write up the recommended controls. So this is what it looks like after we've received after the trigger has been activated. We do the privacy review. So now that we've done the privacy review, we start with the structured review. We understand the processing, we assess the risk level, we analyze the risk, the safeguards that we need to implement, we define the conditions to proceed. And then we can now proceed to saying we now want to translate the legal obligation to the product requirements, because we've now identified all that we need to know, and we know what we need to put in place. What are the conditions that need to be fulfilled before this product can be launched? So our legal obligation is that the users have the right to access the behavioral insights generated about them. Our control objective is smart spend must enable effective exercise of access, objection, and deletion rights. So we have a user story. This is something probably going to be written by the products development team or product management team, or even the privacy team, depending on your technical capabilities. But it's just basically looking at things from the perspective of a user. And the user story is, as a user, I want to be able to download my smart spend data so that I can understand how my behavior is being analyzed. And we've also written a list of the things that need to be fulfilled for us to say that we have now implemented DSRs for smart spend. And this includes that the data being exported must include categorized transactions. It must be available in a machine readable format. It must exclude internal only system metadata. So once this has been fulfilled, then so this is where, let's say, this is where the obligations or the task of the privacy team sort of ends at this point in time of the workflow. We now allow the products and the engineering teams to do their magic. And so what is going to happen is that the product team, they are going to add these tickets into their backlog. They are going to look at the user stories. They are going to see, okay, do we have any questions about this acceptance criteria? Can we adjust this? Can we do it this way instead? We agree on whatever it is that we need to do. And then we do the sprint review where we demonstrate that we do a demo to make sure that the export feature works. We now have the profiling toggle tested. Users can easily delete or request the deletion of their data, and once they do, it's triggered in our databases, and the data gets deleted once approved. Then engineering also looks at it from, oh yes, we need to export API endpoints in order to facilitate the implementation of the rights request, and we also need to like implement security measures in order to make sure that only for example, me as a user, I can only request the deletion of my data, not the deletion of another data. So we want to like put all of the security measures in place. And then privacy comes back into the picture again, because we now need to verify that all the privacy tickets are complete, that our acceptance criteria has been fulfilled, and we've tested that this workflow actually works. That as a user, you can delete your data. As a user, you can request your data, and it's easily available to you. And then once we've done this, we can sign off. We can say, okay, this product is ready. These the data subject request rights has now been operationalized, and it's part of our workflow from a product perspective. And then afterwards, we now want to keep metrics. We want to check how fast are we able to delete. Are we actually deleting the data? What are the defects that we have? What are the export volume? So these are some of the things that we would look at, and this is what it could now look like on the user's end. So we have a full cycle moment here. When smart spend was first proposed, we had the idea stage. The moment that profiling was selected, we had the trigger stage. Then we conducted a structured risk assessment before any architecture was locked in. And then after that, the assessment informed the requirements that now became the build task. And then this task were now implemented and verified. And then the workflow was gated until we verified that evidence has been attached, that actually all of the requirements have been fulfilled. Then after launch, we now monitor performance. And then again, when there is a new feature for Smart Spend, we trigger the privacy review again, and then we start it all over. So what we need to know is that privacy by design is not cyclical. What began as a simple product ticket has become a structured governance process. And this is operational privacy by design. It's not dependent on your memory or on your goodwill, whether we remember privacy or not. It is a system that is properly that when properly designed is not an interruption. It's not an interruption. It is just a part of the business process. So, when we've embedded privacy by design into our workflows, it has a lot of advantages for us as an organization. It means that privacy will stop being a blocker to launch, because when they come to you 2 days before launch and then you say, oh, I need to do the risk assessment, I need to do all of this, I need to do all of that, that's when privacy becomes a sort of blocker, as they say. So it means that we reduce friction, we avoid emergency redesigns, we ensure that the architectural decisions are informed by risk considerations, and from an agile perspective as well, it aligns naturally with iterative development. It means that privacy tasks are also estimated, they are prioritized, they are delivered within your sprint cycles instead of as an external review at the end of everything. So this prevents bottlenecks, it prevents review delays, deployment delays, and it also enhances transparency and accountability across all of the teams. And most importantly, as an organization, it saves you money. It saves you the money that you would use to eventually implement these things because you would have to, and that you would need to now do a concise redesign of your entire architecture in order to bolt on privacy later. So just implementing it from the beginning saves you all of that revenue that could be assigned to something else. So we also have some key takeaways, which are just to summarize everything. Privacy by design must begin at the conception of the product and not at the point of release. And it only becomes operational when your legal and ethical considerations have been translated into concrete product requirements. So you must always ensure that you verify, you are accountable, you have continuous improvement, you have your documentation, you test, you have gated workflows in place in order to actually make sure that you have operational privacy by design. So thank you so much for listening to me and um, for being very active in the chat. I would now take some questions. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Tolulope. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I this was a very very rich session, and I don't know you whether you have the time for a question or so.
Yes, I think I can take one or two questions. Then yes, I would have to move on. Unfortunately.
Oh, great. Oh, that's very wonderful. All right. So we just have, when you started, you talked about, you said, privacy by design starts at the ideation stage and all. And I just have a question because having worked with some startups, and I believe everybody on the call also has this experience, it's always fast paced. So how do you ensure that this privacy by design is taken as serious as actually building the product in this space where speed is prioritized? Yeah.
Well, how to ensure that privacy by design is taken seriously when speed is prioritized is it's basically answering the same question, because if we want to build very fast, we want to make sure that our products hit the market as soon as possible, then it's actually more beneficial to us as an organization to make sure that privacy is actually um embedded in our workflows. So it's going to make sure that we are working by working together with all the privacy requirements, knowing what exactly needs to be implemented from the beginning. It means that we build faster. We are not going to build everything and then identify all of the privacy requirements and then start breaking it in order to rebuild, because that actually takes more time. So the way I would convince my organization, for example, is, see, we are going to save more time, we are going to save more money when we actually just embed privacy into our workflow. So it's actually an advantage and just a way to actually work faster.
So the last question, I think Izuna has a question, and he said, "How do you? Is there an application name that can do all of this from the beginning to the end? Is there like an application that DPOs can use to automate or make this process easier?"
That's a very good question. Well, I have to say that there are different approaches to implementing privacy by design into your operations, and this is one model that I've shown you today. And this model uses your like leveraging your existing product tool, for example, your Jira, your project management tool. That's what this product leverages. So that said, this type of model is going to require a one-time effort from you as a DPO or as a privacy specialist or something. And what this effort is that you are building the workflows, you are integrating it on Jira, you are identifying what data feeds need to be selected. And then once that is done, um, it's just a matter of, we already have the processes, then we just need to carry out the task. But to answer the question directly, because of the way organizations are set up almost no two organizations are the same. So there is really no like software or tool that can help you to implement privacy by design. Also, the processes in your organization are going to be very different from the processes in my organization. So this makes it really, really difficult to say that, okay, yes, there is one tool that once you go there, you're going to achieve privacy by design. But that said, if you're putting your structured workflows, your structured processes in place, this is going to help you a lot, because you can just basically leverage any existing tool that you have, or actually just do new tooling in order to make sure that you can just operationalize things.
Okay, thank you so much. So by this, it's very important to actually know what your company needs or the organization needs and see the tools you can adapt to that. I really wish we had more time for questions, but every other question, I think we'll take that and we will channel it to her later, and provide answers on the platform too. Thank you so much, Tolulope, for your time. Like I said, it was very, very insightful and very, very practical. Some of the things you said, I was like, oh, wow, okay. So, thank you for that. We'll go, like we said at the beginning, the recording of this session will be available on YouTube. And I think the slides will also be shared with the participants. So we can always go over that as many times as we need to and internalize, so that even us as DPOs, we move just from, talking legal and law and actually speak language that other stakeholders in this process can actually understand and implement. Okay, so I'll just hand over to our founder, Amaka, as she takes us in closing. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. And thank you so much to Lupe. Thank you for even going a few minutes over. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Um, Before we wrap up, I have a couple of announcements to make so that you're all very aware. First of all, this was a very impressive webinar, just to understand that at DPO African Network, we are all about operationalizing data protection, and this is a sneak peek into what we are about. So thank you so much. Quickly, if you have questions that have not been addressed today, on Monday we have our DPO meetup. The link will be put in there. If you've got questions, bring it. This is a session where we have peer-to-peer discussion on what your questions are about. Like Tolulope has mentioned, this is one approach. You might not agree with it based on how your organization is set up. Let's come together, let's ask our questions, and let's unpack it together so that we can share common insight. If you are a DPO and you're still trying to figure all of this out, please join our DPO Den. DPO Den is where we have the one-on-one coaching. We have a couple of DPOs on there where we go through your daily challenges. Someone asks what tools to be used. We share such things, and even your personal ambition. This is where we have one-on-one coaching session. You do not want to miss this one. And if you're not very clear on should I join the coaching session at this time, you could just book a complimentary session, and the link to the calendar will be out there. We really want you to succeed, because when you succeed, we succeed, and this is a win-win collaboration. Next up, Tolulope has shared a lot. However, within the community, we have our training courses. A lot of all of these will be unpacked in those training courses, which can now be taken on demand. So you want to do well to check it. I always tell people, start with the Data Protection Foundation, where a number of the concepts talked about today is in there, and then you have the community that can respond to your questions. And of course, we have the Data Protection Practitioner, which will go from policy to your incident response to doing your data subject access, right? All of that in that module. And our latest course is the AI governance, risk and compliance. The example that Tolulope gave today even touched on AI, but what does it mean to build an AI governance program within your organization? The AI GRC looks into that. So take all of those on demand, and anytime we have a live course, once you are registered, you will be notified to join as well. And as you can join as many courses as possible because your questions will keep coming, and also you can also learn from the interaction of other participants. If you're not aware of our book we released this year, please, it is now in the network where you can get it. The link will also be there, especially for those who are starting out or those who are tenured. A lot of this concept has been put in, and it was painstakingly reviewed by 21 reviewers from the network. And we're currently doing a book study in a policy and practice working group, which happens every Thursday. So tomorrow, if you're part of that, please join. And of course, the link to join is in there. DPO Africa is all about operationalizing data protection. So there are pockets of community where you can get into, enrich yourself, enrich your skill, build network, and share your insight, as well as leverage from the insights of others. That being said, I want to thank you all so much for joining. We're still testing our DPO bot and DPO AI. Leverage it. We're looking through all of the questions that's being asked and the responses that's being given. So we want you to continue to use that. If you ever have any question, please email us info@dpoafrica.net. We will get your questions and we would respond to it. These recordings will be shared with everyone who has joined us today and everyone who has registered. One last announcement. If you plan on taking the IAPP certification exam this year, email us as well so that we can give you a plug to get discounted rates in taking the exam through our partner. With that being said, my name again is 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝗶𝘃𝗰𝘆. I want to thank our moderator, 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝗶 Sharon Opo, for helping us with today's session. And of course, we are really indebted to Tolulope Ogundele for going through these insights. Please rewatch this video, and I hope we will have to do more with Tolulope to be able to uncover what it means to be a DPO and a privacy professional in practice. With that being said, I want to say thank you all so much, and hope to see you next month, because next month our goal is to bring in privacy by default. We're taking it a notch higher. See you next month. Bye for now. Bye.